The alarm bells rang through Coalition Command Station Omega-7 for the first time in 50 years. Deep in space, orbiting the neutral world of Centros Prime, the massive station buzzed with activity as ships from 3 different alien species docked at its ports. Emergency meetings were rare. Emergency meetings called by all 3 major powers at once had never happened before. Commander Taemin of the Krillian Empire stepped off his transport ship, his scaled green skin catching the harsh lights of the docking bay. His people were warriors, bred for battle across 1,000 worlds. The Krillians had the strongest military in the galaxy, but even their might seemed small against what was coming. He carried himself with the rigid posture of a soldier, but his yellow eyes showed worry that he tried to hide. Down the corridor, researcher Ha-Yun from the Vorthon Republic hurried toward the main conference room. Her pale blue skin was typical of her people, who had long ago adapted to the cold worlds they preferred. The Vorthons were scientists and engineers, always building and learning. Ha-Yun had spent years studying the ruins of dead civilizations, trying to understand the past. Now she wondered if any of them would have a future. Elder Kyung-Soo of the Nalari Confederation moved slowly through the station's halls. His people were different from the others, taller, thinner, with silver skin that seemed to glow faintly in dim light. The Nalari were spiritual guides and diplomats, keepers of old wisdom and ancient stories. Kyung-Soo remembered tales his grandmother had told him, stories about sleeping giants and forgotten warnings. Today, those old stories felt more real than ever. The 3 representatives entered the war room together. It was a circular chamber with walls that could display star maps and battle formations. Right now, the walls showed nothing but red. Red meant danger. Red meant death coming fast across the galaxy. The Devourers have taken 12 more systems, Taemin said without greeting the others. His voice was rough like rocks grinding together. My fleets cannot stop them. Nothing we do slows them down. Ha-Yun activated a holographic display showing the outer rim of the galaxy. Entire sectors that had been blue just months ago now pulsed angry red. Our analysis shows they consume everything, planets, stars, even the space between them. They leave nothing behind but empty darkness. The old stories speak of this, Kyung-Soo said quietly. The ancient texts warn of machines that eat light itself. But they also speak of guardians who once stood against such darkness. Taemin's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of anger among his people. Stories and legends will not save us, Elder. We need weapons, ships, soldiers. We need real solutions. The humans had such weapons, Ha-Un said, then immediately looked like she wished she had not spoken. The word human made the room feel cold. For a moment, nobody spoke. 300 years ago, humans had ruled much of the galaxy. They had been powerful, perhaps too powerful. The 3 species now meeting had once been their junior partners, following human lead in exploration and defense. But humans had grown controlling, demanding. They had treated the other species like children who could not be trusted with important decisions. So the 3 species had worked together in secret. They had planned and prepared. When the time was right, they had struck hard and fast. The Great Purge had lasted only 3 years, but it had been thorough. Every human world burned, every human ship destroyed. Every human life ended, or so they believed. The humans are gone, Taemin said firmly. We made sure of that. Their weapons died with them. But their technology remains, Ha-Un pressed. In ruins, in fragments. I have studied human sites for years. Their defensive systems were incredible. If we could understand them, recreate them. Impossible! Taemin cut her off. Human technology was locked behind quantum encryption. Only humans could operate it. Only human genetic codes could unlock it. We tried for decades after the Purge. Nothing worked. Kyung-Soo stood and walked to the star map. His long fingers traced the advancing line of red dots. Perhaps that was by design. Perhaps they knew this day would come. You speak as if they planned their own extinction, Ha-Yun said. Did they? The elder asked softly. Or did we simply do what they expected us to do? Before anyone could answer, the lights in the room flickered. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Tae-min reached for his weapon, but his hand stopped halfway. The weapon would not respond to his touch. Security breach, Ha-Eun said, checking her wrist computer, but the screen was blank. My systems are down. The doors to the war room sealed with a soft hiss. The three aliens looked around nervously. This was the most secure room on the most secure station in Coalition space. Nothing should be able to breach it. The gravity shifted, making them all stumble. For a moment, they felt weightless. Then everything returned to normal. Normal except for the fact that none of their technology worked. Normal except for the growing sense that they were not alone. The wall across from them began to shimmer. It looked like heat waves rising from hot ground, but the room was cool. The shimmer grew stronger, and the solid metal wall became transparent. Through it stepped a figure that should not exist. It was human. The figure wore a military uniform that looked old but well-maintained. Dark fabric with silver buttons and rank insignia that meant nothing to the aliens, but somehow looked important. The human was male, average height for his species, with black hair and brown eyes that seemed to see everything at once. He looked around the room calmly, taking in the three aliens who stared at him with shock and fear. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady, with an accent none of them recognized. My name is Captain Dong-hyun, he said in perfect galactic standard. I believe you have been expecting me. Tae-min tried again to draw his weapon. It remained, locked in its holster as if welded there. You cannot be here. Your species is extinct. We made sure of it. The human smiled, but it was not a happy expression. Did you? Are you certain of that, Commander Tae-min of the 3rd Krillian Battle Fleet? Son of General Tae-wan, who commanded the assault on New Earth? Grandson of Admiral Tae-soo, who planned the attack on the Luna shipyards? Tae-min's scales went pale. Those names, those details, they were classified military history, family records that only the highest levels of Krillian command knew about. Dong-hyun turned to Ha-Yun. And you, researcher Ha-Yun, you have spent 12 years studying human ruins on 17 different worlds. Tell me, did you really think you found those sites by accident? Did you never wonder why the quantum locks opened so easily for your team? Ha-Yun's mouth opened, but no sound came. Out. Every major discovery of her career flashed through her mind. Had none of it been real? Finally, the human looked at Kyung-soo. Elder, your people remember the old warnings. You know why I am here. The sleepers wake when the darkness returns, Kyung-soo whispered. The guardians rise when the galaxy bleeds. You never left at all, did you? Captain Dong-hyun walked to the center of the room. As he moved, the walls came alive with new displays, star maps more detailed than anything the Coalition had ever seen, fleet positions showing every ship in, their combined forces. Resource counts down to the last bolt and bullet. We have been watching, Dong-hyun said simply. We have been waiting, and now the time for waiting is over. Outside the station, space began to shimmer just as the wall had done. Ships appeared, where nothing had been before. Human ships, sleek and powerful, with designs unlike anything the galaxy had seen for 3 centuries. The 3 aliens realized that everything they thought they knew about the universe had just changed forever. Captain Dong-hyun stood in the center of the war room, as if he owned it. The 3 alien representatives remained frozen in place, still trying to understand what they were seeing. A human. Alive. Here. In the most secure location in Coalition. Space. Please sit down, Dong-hyun said, gesturing to the chairs around the central table. His voice was calm, almost friendly. We have much to discuss and very little time. Taemin's warrior instincts screamed at him to attack, but his weapon still would not work. His communication implant was dead. Even the emergency beacon sewn into his uniform had gone silent. How are you blocking our technology? I am not blocking anything, Dong-hyun replied, walking to the star map display. Your technology simply recognizes that I have higher authority, as it was always programmed to do. Ha-yun found her voice first. That is impossible. We completely rebuilt our systems after the purge. New codes, new protocols, new everything. There is no way human authority codes could still work. The human touched the wall display, and it responded instantly. The star map zoomed in to show the advancing Devourer fleets in perfect detail. Far more detail than Coalition sensors should have been able to provide. Tell me, researcher, who do you think taught your people quantum computing? Who showed the Vorthans how to build faster-than-light communication networks? Where did the mathematical principles come from? Ha-yun's blue skin grew paler. Her people had always been proud of their technological achievements. They had built the Coalition's best computers, their fastest ships, their most advanced weapons. But when she thought back to the historical records, the breakthrough discoveries always seemed to build on fragments found in human ruins. You gave us the foundation, she whispered. Even after we destroyed you, you were still guiding our development. We were not destroyed, Dong-hyun said simply. He waved his hand and the display changed to show a new star map. This one revealed solar systems that appeared empty in Coalition records, but now pulsed with activity, thousands of them. We withdrew. There is a difference. Kyung-soo leaned forward in his chair. The elder's silver skin seemed to glow brighter as understanding dawned. The prophecies were literal. The sleeping giants did not die. They simply closed their eyes and waited. Your people remember more than the others, Dong-hyun nodded to the Nalari. The Nalari kept the old stories alive, even when they did not fully understand them. That wisdom may be what saves you all. Taemin slammed his fist on the table, his scales shifting to angry red. Saves us? From what? You speak as if we are children who need protection. Are you not? Dong-hyun's brown eyes fixed on the Krillian. Commander. 3 centuries ago, your species threw a tantrum because humans would not let you play with weapons that could destroy star systems. Now those same weapons are loose in the galaxy and you cannot stop them. What would you call that? The Devourers are not our fault, Taemin growled. Are they not? The human touched the display again. New information appeared showing the expansion routes of Coalition colonies over the past century. Look at your growth pattern. Look at where you built your newest settlements. Every single one of them in sectors we marked as forbidden. Ha-yun studied the display with growing horror. She recognized several of the colony sites. Her own research teams had surveyed many of them. Those areas were listed as having dangerous spatial anomalies. We thought the warnings were left over from old human paranoia. The warnings were real, Dong-hyun said. Those regions contained devourer hibernation nodes, ancient machines left sleeping until organic life expanded far enough to wake them. Humans knew this. We kept those areas empty for good reason. Then why did you not warn us? Kyung-soo asked. For the first time, the human's calm expression cracked. Slightly. We tried. For 50 years after the purge, we sent warnings through hidden channels, anonymous messages, encrypted data packets, even holographic recordings. Your governments declared them hoaxes, human ghosts trying to reclaim power through fear. Taemin remembered those messages. The military had shown them to officers as examples of psychological warfare. Fake human survivors trying to trick the Coalition into avoiding profitable expansion zones. We thought they were lies. Of course you did. You had convinced yourselves that humans were the only threat in the galaxy. You could not imagine that we might have been protecting you from something worse. The wall display shifted again, showing the Devourer fleets in real time. The mechanical monsters moved through space like a plague, consuming everything in their path. But now the aliens could see something new in the data. The machines were not moving randomly. They were following specific paths, heading toward specific targets. They are going to Coalition core worlds, Ha-Yun breathed. But how do they know where to find our most important systems? Because they are designed to target whatever civilization woke them, Dong-hyun explained. The Devourers are not random destroyers. They are a reset mechanism, a way to clear the galaxy when organic life grows too aggressive, too reckless. Reset mechanism? Taemin demanded. Reset by whom? By those who came before us all, a species that died out millions of years ago, but left safeguards behind. The Devourers activate when certain conditions are met. Rapid expansion into forbidden zones, development of planet-killing weapons, the elimination of designated guardian species. Kyung-soo's eyes widened. Guardian species? You mean humans? Among others. There have been many guardians over the millennia. Most failed in the end, destroyed by the very civilizations they tried to protect. Humans lasted longer than most, but we saw the pattern. We knew what was coming. So you let us drive you away, Ha-Eun said. You allowed the purge to succeed because you knew we would make the same mistakes as others before us. Dong-hyun nodded slowly. We hoped you might prove different. That given time and freedom, you might grow wise enough to avoid the traps that caught previous civilizations. We were wrong. The silence in the room was heavy. Outside, through the transparent walls, they could see more human ships appearing. Sleek vessels that moved with impossible grace, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. How many of you survived? Taemin asked quietly. More than you killed. Fewer than we once were. Enough. Dong-hyun turned away from the display to face them directly. The question now is not about the past. The question is about the future. About whether this cycle ends in extinction or evolution. What do you mean? Ha-Eun asked. The Devourers can be stopped, but not by us alone, and not by you alone. The galaxy has changed in 300 years. Your species have grown, learned, adapted. Together, we might be strong enough to break the cycle permanently. And if we refuse? Taemin's warrior pride bristled at the idea of accepting help from humans. Dong-hyun's expression became very cold. Then you follow the path of every other civilization that the Devourers have consumed. You become another cautionary tale for whoever comes next. Kyung-soo stood up, his tall frame casting long shadows in the red emergency lighting. What would you ask of us? Trust, the human said simply. The hardest thing to give, and the only thing that might save us all. The alarms began ringing again, louder this time. The wall display flashed urgent warnings. Devourer advance scouts had been detected in the outer system moving toward Centros Prime. Choose quickly, Dong-hyun said. They are coming. The space around Coalition Command Station Omega-7 suddenly filled with light. Not the harsh white light of explosions, but a soft blue glow that seemed to wrap around the massive station like a protective bubble. Through the war room's transparent walls, the three aliens watched in amazement as Devourer scout ships struck the barrier and simply stopped, unable to move forward. Impressive, Captain Dong-hyun said, checking a device on his wrist that looked nothing like Coalition technology. Our defensive grid is holding well. That should give us enough time. Time for what? Taemin demanded. His scales had shifted to nervous yellow-green as he watched the mechanical monsters trying to break through the barrier. To show you the truth, Dong-hyun replied. All of it. The human walked to the center of the room and pressed his palm against what looked like empty air. Suddenly, a doorway appeared in the floor. Not a hatch or an opening, but a completely new passage that had not existed moments before. "Please follow me," Dong-hyun said, stepping onto a platform that descended smoothly into the station's lower levels. "Stay close. The path can be dangerous for those who do not belong here." Ha-eun was the first to follow, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. Kyung-soo came next, his silver skin glowing brighter as they moved deeper into areas that should not exist. Taemin hesitated, then stepped onto the platform with a warrior's grim determination. They descended through levels of the station that were not on any coalition blueprint. The walls here were different, made of materials that seemed to shift between metal and crystal. Strange symbols glowed softly along the corridors, pulsing in rhythm like a heartbeat. "This entire section has been here since the station was built," Dong-hyun explained as they walked. "Hidden in plain sight. Your engineers built around it without ever knowing it was there." "Impossible," Ha-eun breathed. "I studied the construction records. Every bolt, every wire, every power conduit is documented." "You studied what we allowed you to study," the human said gently. "The records show what your people needed to see to build a functional station. Nothing more." They emerged into a vast chamber that should not have fit inside the station. The space was enormous, filled with equipment and displays that made coalition technology look primitive. In the center stood a tall woman with black hair tied back in a simple knot. She wore the same style of military uniform as Dong-hyun, but with different rank markings. "Captain," she said, nodding to Dong-hyun. "Our guests look confused." "Sister, these are the coalition representatives. Commander Taemin, Researcher Ha-eun, Elder Kyung-soo." Dong-hyun gestured to each alien in turn. "This is Dr. Soo-jin, our senior xenobiologist." Soo-jin stepped forward, studying each alien with obvious scientific interest. "I have been monitoring your species' development for the past 40 years. You have grown more than we expected." "Monitoring how?" Taemin asked suspiciously. "Through careful observation and gentle guidance," Soo-jin replied. She activated a holographic display that showed detailed biological scans of all three aliens. "We needed to understand how your species would evolve during our absence, whether you would become wise enough to handle the responsibilities that come with galactic citizenship." Ha-eun stared at her own bioscan in shock. It showed details about her physiology that even Vorthon medical science had not discovered. "You know more about us than we know about ourselves." "Knowledge was always humanity's greatest strength," Soo-jin said. "But knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. That is why your species needed time to grow." A new voice spoke from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. "Time you wasted quite thoroughly." Another human stepped into the light. This one was older, with gray hair and scars on his hands that spoke of long years working with dangerous equipment. His uniform bore the markings of an engineer. "Woo-bin," Dong-hyun said with slight warning in his voice. "Be polite." The engineer, Woo-bin, shrugged. "Politeness will not save them from the devourers. 3 centuries we spent carefully feeding them improved technology, better computers, faster ships, stronger weapons, all designed to prepare them for this exact situation. And what did they do with our gifts?" "We used them to build a better civilization," Taemin said defensively. "You used them to expand into forbidden zones and wake up the galaxy's nightmares," Woo-bin shot back. "Every piece of technology we gave you came with subtle safeguards, warning systems that should have prevented exactly what happened. But your people disabled them because they interfered with profit margins." Ha-eun felt sick. Her entire career had been built on studying human ruins and reverse engineering their technology. Now she realized that every major breakthrough her people had achieved was because humans had wanted them to achieve it. "You have been controlling our development this entire time." Guiding, not controlling, Sujin corrected. There is a difference. We could have taken direct action at any time. Instead, we chose to let your species make their own choices, even when those choices were wrong. Because you wanted us to fail, Taemin accused. Because we wanted you to learn, Dong-hyun said, firmly. The same way a parent lets a child make small mistakes to avoid larger ones later. We hoped that given freedom and time, your species would develop the wisdom to handle power responsibly. Kyung-soo had been silent through this exchange, but now he spoke. The old stories speak of tests, trials that young species must pass before they can join the community of stars. This was our test, was it not? Sujin nodded. One of them. There are always multiple tests. How you treat weaker species. How you handle disagreements between yourselves. Whether you can resist the temptation to abuse powerful technology. And we failed, Ha-yun said quietly. You failed the first attempts, Dong-hyun corrected. But failure is part of learning. The question now is whether you can learn from those failures quickly enough to survive what comes next. Alarms began sounding in the hidden chamber. Woo-bin rushed to a control panel, his hands moving over displays with practiced efficiency. Captain, the defensive barrier is weakening. The scouts are calling for reinforcements. How long do we have? Dong-hyun asked. 6 hours, maybe 7. After that, they will break through and signal the main fleet. Sujin turned to the 3 aliens. This is why we revealed ourselves now. The Devourers are not just mindless destroyers. They are intelligent, adaptive. They learn from each encounter and become stronger. If we wait for them to reach the core worlds, it will be too late. Too late for what? Taemin asked. To save anyone, Dong-hyun replied. Including ourselves. The chamber shook as something massive struck the barrier outside. Through the walls, they could see more Devourer ships arriving. Sleek black vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Your people always wondered why humans seemed so paranoid about security, Woo-bin said, still working at his controls. Why? We built so many defenses. Why we were so careful about expansion. This is why. We knew what was out there in the dark. But you also knew how to fight it, Ha-un said. It was not a question. Fighting is the last resort, Sujin explained. The Devourers are designed to adapt to any attack. Traditional warfare only makes them stronger. The only way to truly defeat them is to make them believe they are no longer needed. How do we do that? Kyung-soo asked. Dong-hyun looked at each alien in turn. By proving that the galaxy has finally learned to govern itself wisely. By showing that organic life can exist without destroying everything around it. By working together instead of fighting each other. Another impact shook the chamber, stronger this time. Cracks appeared in the barrier visible through the walls. Choose now, Dong-hyun said urgently. Will you trust us enough to try, or will you let pride destroy everything our species have built? The 3 aliens looked at each other. Centuries of hate and mistrust weighed against the approaching darkness. In the end, survival won. What do you need us to do? Taemin asked. Dong-hyun smiled for the first time since entering their war room. Help us wake up the rest of the galaxy. The moment Taemin agreed to help, everything changed. The hidden chamber filled with activity as humans emerged from passages the aliens had not even noticed. They moved with purpose and coordination that made coalition military operations look clumsy by comparison. Signal all hidden assets, Captain Dong-hyun ordered a young human woman at a communications station. Full awakening protocol, authorization code, sleeping giant. Yes, sir, the woman replied, her fingers dancing over controls that responded to her touch like living things. Sending wake-up calls to all sectors. Dr. Sujin approached the 3 aliens with what looked like simple metal bracelets. These will allow you to communicate with our systems and translate our tactical displays. They will also protect you from some of the side effects of our technology. Ha-Yun took hers first, fascinated by the smooth metal that felt warm against her skin. The moment she put it on, the air around her filled with floating symbols and readouts that somehow made perfect sense. I can see your data streams. This is incredible. Standard human interface technology, Engineer Wubin said, though he seemed pleased by her reaction. We will need you to coordinate with your respective fleets. Tell them to stand ready, but do not engage the Devourers directly. Not yet. Kyung-Soo slipped on his bracelet and immediately stiffened. His silver skin began glowing much brighter than before. I can feel them. All across the galaxy. Humans everywhere, waking up after centuries of sleep. Not sleep, Dong-hyun corrected. Patience. There is a difference. Through the chamber's displays, they watched as space itself seemed to come alive. Star systems that had appeared empty on coalition maps suddenly blazed with activity. Hidden human colonies revealed themselves, their advanced cities and orbital stations shimmering into view like mirages becoming real. But it was not just the colonies. Throughout coalition space, on worlds that had been settled for generations, humans began dropping their disguises. Shop owners, teachers, factory workers, even some government officials, all revealed themselves to be human agents who had been living among the aliens for decades. How many of you are there? Taemin asked, his scales shifting colors rapidly as he processed what he was seeing. Enough, a new voice said from behind them. They turned to see a woman in a different style of uniform, one that marked her as high-ranking military. She was tall and moved with the fluid grace of a born warrior. I am Admiral Ji-won, Dong-hyun's sister and commander of the Hidden Fleet. Hidden Fleet? Taemin asked. The main display shifted to show space around major coalition worlds. As they watched, massive human ships began appearing, emerging from what looked like empty vacuum. These were not the sleek vessels they had seen earlier, but enormous warships that dwarfed anything in the coalition arsenal. We have been here all along, Ji-won explained. Watching, waiting, protecting you from threats you never knew existed. This is not the first time the Devourers have stirred in the past 3 centuries. But until now, we were able to deal with them quietly. You fought them before? Ha-eun asked. Without telling us? 17 times, Wubin said, pulling up records that made the aliens feel sick. Each incident showed Devourer scouts or small fleets that had awakened early, only to be destroyed by human forces before they could signal the main swarm. Small outbreaks caused by coalition expansion into sensitive areas. We contained them before they could become serious threats. Why did you not warn us? Taemin demanded. We tried, Admiral Ji-won said firmly. Anonymous messages, false flag operations, even direct contact through intermediaries. Your governments classified all warnings as human propaganda and continued expanding into forbidden zones. Dr. Soo-jin activated a new display showing coalition colony patterns over the past century. Look at your expansion routes. Every warning we sent caused you to avoid certain areas temporarily. But you always returned, convinced that human warnings were attempts to keep valuable resources for ourselves. Kyung-Soo studied the patterns with growing understanding. We thought you were lying to keep us weak. Instead, you were trying to keep us alive. Your species are not the first to make this mistake, Ji-won said sadly. The galaxy has seen this cycle many times. Young civilizations grow powerful, ignore the warnings of their elders, and wake the Devourers through reckless expansion. Most do not survive their first real encounter. The chamber shook again as more Devourer ships struck the barrier. This time, the impact was strong enough to knock Ha-Yun off her feet. Wubin caught her easily, his enhanced reflexes moving faster than her eyes could follow. The barrier will not hold much longer, Wubin reported. Main swarm ETA is 4 hours. Then we begin the real work now, Dong-hyun said. He turned to the three aliens. Contact your fleets. Tell them to begin falling back to defensive positions around core worlds. Do not let them engage the advanced scouts. Fall back? Taemin's warrior pride rebelled at the idea. That is retreat, not strategy. It is survival, Admiral Jiwon corrected. Watch. The main display showed a Krillian patrol fleet encountering a small group of Devourer scouts. The aliens watched in horror as their most advanced warships opened fire with everything they had. The energy beams and missiles struck the black machines with tremendous force, and the Devourers absorbed it all. They feed on energy, Dr. Sujin explained as the mechanical monsters began to grow larger and more powerful. Every shot fired at them makes them stronger. Traditional warfare is exactly what they want. The display continued as the now enhanced Devourers easily destroyed the Krillian ships. But instead of moving on, they began replicating themselves, using the absorbed energy to create more machines. Each ship you lose makes the swarm bigger, Dong-hyun said. This is why we cannot fight them the way your species fight each other. Then how do we fight them? Ha-yun asked. We do not fight them, a new voice said. An older human man entered the chamber, his uniform bearing marks that indicated very high rank. We convinced them to leave. This is Coordinator Hae-jin, Admiral Ji-won said. He leads our civilian council and has studied the Devourers longer than anyone alive. Hae-jin approached the alien representatives with the careful steps of someone very old, but still sharp. The Devourers are not evil. They are a tool, created by a species that died out millions of years ago. Their purpose is to reset galactic civilization when it becomes too dangerous to itself and others. Reset how? Kyung-soo asked. By consuming everything and starting over, Hae-jin replied. They activate when certain conditions are met. Rapid expansion into forbidden zones, development of planet-killing weapons, elimination of guardian species, the destruction of ecological balance on a galactic scale. Taemin looked uncomfortable. The Coalition has done all of those things, yes, which is why they have awakened in full force for the first time in 3 million years. Hae-jin activated a historical display showing the rise and fall of previous galactic civilizations. Every species that has reached this level of technology has faced the same test. Most fail. What happens to those who pass? Ha-eun asked. They become the new guardians, Dr. Sujin said. They inherit the responsibility of guiding younger species and preventing future awakenings. It is not an easy path. The barrier outside finally failed with a sound like breaking glass. Devourer. Scouts poured through, but instead of attacking the station, they began sending signals into deep space. The main swarm knows where we are now, Wu Bin reported. 3 hours until they arrive in overwhelming force. Admiral Ji-won looked at the three aliens. Your fleets are in position. Our ships are ready. But before we begin, you must understand something. This battle will not be won with weapons. It will be won by proving that organic life has finally learned to work together instead of destroying each other. What do you mean? Taemin asked. Dong-hyun stepped forward. For the next 3 hours, human and coalition forces must fight as one, not as separate armies working toward the same goal, but as a single force with a single purpose. Complete trust, perfect coordination, no holding back. If we fail, Hae-jin added quietly, the Devourers will consume everything. Your worlds, our worlds, and everything else in the galaxy. Then they will sleep again until the next civilization grows large enough to wake them. And if we succeed? Kyung-soo asked. Then the galaxy enters a new age, Admiral Ji-won said. One where humans and coalition species work together as equals to guard against future threats. Alarms began ringing throughout the chamber. The main Devourer swarm had been detected at the edge of the system, a dark cloud of machines that blotted out the stars. Choose quickly, Dong-hyun said. Trust us completely or lose everything. The three aliens looked at each other one final time. Then Taemin activated his communication device. All Krillian fleets, this is Commander Taemin. Prepare to accept human tactical coordination, full integration protocols. Ha-eun and Kyung-soo quickly followed with similar orders to their own forces. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. The main Devourer swarm filled space like a living shadow. Millions of black machines moved together in perfect formation, each one the size of a coalition battleship. As they approached the inner system, smaller scout units broke away to test the defenses around each world. In the hidden command center, Captain Dong-hyun stood beside Admiral Ji-won as they coordinated the largest joint operation in galactic history. Human and coalition ships moved together in patterns that would have been impossible just hours before. The trust was fragile, but it was real. Krillian Third Fleet is in position around their homeworld, Taemin reported, his voice tight with stress. My people are ready, but they do not understand why we are not firing. Vorthon Defense Grid is online, Ha-eun added. Our best scientists are monitoring the approach. The energy readings from those machines are unlike anything we have ever seen. Kyung-soo's voice came through the communication system with an odd tone of wonder. The Nalari meditation circles are active across all our worlds. My people say they can feel something changing in the fabric of space itself. Dr. Soo-jin looked up from her instruments. The Devourers are scanning everything. Not just our military positions, but our cities, our communications, our entire civilization. They are trying to determine if we have learned from past mistakes. What exactly are they looking for? Ha-eun asked. Coordinator Hyojin, the elderly human leader, stepped forward. Evidence of wisdom. Signs that organic life has evolved beyond the patterns that trigger reset protocols. The ability to work together instead of destroying each other. Through the main display, they watched as Devourer scouts approached the first line of defense. Coalition ships waited in perfect formation alongside human vessels. The temptation to fire first was overwhelming, but somehow every captain held their position. Weapons are locked, Admiral Ji-won announced. All ships, human and coalition, are following the plan. This is unprecedented. The Devourers reached the outer defense perimeter and stopped. For long minutes, nothing happened. The mechanical swarm hung in space, sending out scanning beams that swept across every ship, every station, every inhabited world. They are analyzing our formations, Engineer Wubin explained, his hands moving over controls that monitored the alien machines. Looking for signs of the old patterns, separate command structures, hidden agendas, species favoring their own kind over others. Are they finding any? Taemin asked nervously. Not yet, but the real test comes next. As if responding to his words, the Devourer swarm began to move again. But instead of attacking, they split into 3 groups, each heading toward a different species' homeworld. The message was clear. They were offering each species a chance to abandon their allies and save themselves. This is it, Dong-hyun said quietly. The moment every previous civilization has failed. When survival instincts overcome cooperation. On the displays, they could see coalition commanders receiving urgent messages from their homeworlds. Families, friends, and political leaders all demanding that their fleets return home to protect their own people. The pressure was enormous. Krillian High Command is ordering me to return immediately, Taemin said, his scales shifting to stressed purple. They say protecting alien worlds is not our responsibility. The Vorthon Council agrees, Ha-Un added reluctantly. They want all our ships defending Vorthon space only. Kyung-Soo was quiet for a moment before speaking. The Nalari elders say this choice will define our species for generations to come. They are praying for wisdom. Choose quickly, Admiral Ji-won urged. The Devourers are almost in position to begin their cleansing. For a heartbeat that seemed to last forever, nobody moved. Then Tai Min's voice came through the communication system, strong and clear. All Krillian fleets, maintain current positions. We stand with our allies. Ha-Un followed immediately. Vorthon forces, hold formation. We fight together or not at all. The Nalari fleet remains committed to the combined defense. Kyung-Soo said with quiet dignity. Dr. Soo-jin checked her instruments and smiled for the first time in hours. The Devourer scanning patterns are changing. I think we surprised them. The mechanical swarm stopped its advance. For several minutes, the machines hung motionless in space while their sensors swept back and forth across the combined fleets. Then something unprecedented happened. The Devourers began to retreat. Is that normal? Ha-Yun asked in amazement. Nothing about this is normal, Coordinator Hee-jin replied, but his voice carried hope. In 3 million years of galactic history, no civilization has ever passed the unity test on their first attempt. We are not finished yet, Dong-hyun warned. This was only the first test. There will be others. As if summoned by his words, new contacts appeared on the sensors. These were not Devourers, but something else entirely. Ships that seemed to be made of crystallized light approached from deeper space. They moved with grace that made even human vessels look clumsy. Who are they? Tae-min demanded, his warrior instincts flaring. The evaluators, Dr. Soo-jin said with reverence. Representatives of the species that created the Devourers. They come to judge whether we are truly ready for the next level of existence. The crystal ships took positions around the combined fleet, but they made no hostile moves. Instead, they sent a communication signal unlike anything any of the species had ever received. It bypassed their technology entirely, speaking directly to their minds. Greetings, children of the galaxy, the voice said, ancient beyond measure but somehow warm. You have surprised us. Never before has a multi-species civilization chosen cooperation over survival instinct when facing extinction. What happens? Now? Kyung-Soo asked aloud. Now you face the final test, the voice replied. The Devourers will withdraw, but the responsibility for galactic peace becomes yours. You must prove that this unity is not temporary, born of crisis, but permanent and based on genuine understanding. What does that mean exactly? Admiral Ji-won asked. One of the crystal ships moved closer to the station. As it approached, its hull became transparent, revealing beings of pure energy inside. They were beautiful and terrible, creatures that had transcended physical form long ago. You must rebuild your civilizations based on cooperation rather than competition, the energy being explained. Share knowledge freely, protect weaker species, and prevent future awakenings of the reset mechanism. The humans will teach you what. They know of galactic guardianship, but the responsibility belongs to all of you equally. And if we fail? Ha-Un asked. Then the Devourers return, and this time there will be no tests, no chances for redemption. Only silence. The crystal ships began to fade from view, but the ancient voice continued. You have 1 generation to prove yourselves. Use it wisely. As the evaluators vanished, the Devourer swarm began its withdrawal from the galaxy. The mechanical monsters moved slowly at first, then faster, until they disappeared into the dark spaces between stars where they would sleep again until needed. In the command center, humans and aliens looked at each other with new understanding. The immediate crisis was over, but their real work was just beginning. "So what happens next?" Taemin asked. Captain Dong-hyun smiled, but it was a tired expression. "Next, we learn to live together. Really live together, not just survive together. We share our knowledge, our resources, our dreams for the future. It will not be easy," Coordinator Hee-jin warned. 3 centuries of mistrust do not disappear overnight. There will be arguments, setbacks, moments when cooperation seems impossible. "But we will try," Ha-un said firmly, "because the alternative is extinction." Kyung-soo nodded slowly. The Nilari have a saying, "The greatest strength is knowing when to extend your hand instead of your sword." Today we learn the truth of those words. Months later, Captain Dong-hyun stood in a new kind of war room. This one was not hidden, but open to representatives from all species. Human officers worked alongside Krillian commanders, Vorthon scientists, and Nilari advisors. The walls displayed star maps showing not invasion routes or defensive positions, but exploration plans and colony sites carefully chosen to avoid sensitive areas. "Status report," Admiral Ji-won requested. "The Joint Exploration Fleet has identified 17 new systems suitable for careful development," a Vorthon scientist reported, "all scanned and approved by the Guardian Council." The Krillian human. "Training exchange is exceeding expectations," Taemin added. "Our warriors are learning patience, while humans are learning the value of decisive action. Cultural integration programs are showing positive results across all species," Kyung-soo noted. "Young people especially are embracing the new cooperative model." Ha-yun looked up from her research station. "And I am pleased to report that we have successfully reverse-engineered enough Devourer technology to build our own early warning systems. The next time something like this happens, we will have centuries of advance notice instead of hours." Dong-hyun nodded with satisfaction. When a young coalition officer asked him if he thought this peace would last, he considered the question carefully. "Peace is not something you achieve," he said finally. "It is something you build, every day, together. As long as we remember that lesson, we have a chance." Outside the station, ships from 4 different species moved together through space, carrying explorers and scientists and dreamers toward new worlds. Behind them, the